Hello, my name is James Young, and welcome to another edition of It's a New Day. We have a very good guest who's a very good friend of mine. He watched the show that we just aired last week, and to show you that this is working, we broadcasted a show, and we're glad to get feedback from the public. And when I spoke with Mr. Johnson this morning, he was saying to me some of the things that he agreed with and disagreed with. So I says, well, that sounds like a show to me. So why don't we come and do the show? So here I have today a great friend of mine, William Johnson. We call him Smokey. He's been here for 100 years. Thank you so much for coming.
Good. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
As you know, last week we had a panel that consisted of Chief Shepard, the Chief of Police for the Rochester Police Department, as well as Victor Saunders, Pathway to Peace, and Nelson Baldwin, the President of the Jefferson Avenue Business Association. We talked earlier, and you mentioned that some of the views, there was a contrast in views. And would you like to explain, what you mean by that?
Well, actually, what I mean is, when I heard, what I heard was not new. It was, and if we want to build on something, we have to start from the ground, I would say, and forget about what used to be and what, because there's too many things that I was a part of in the 60s and 70s, 80s, and these things I'm still hearing them, instead of hearing new things, because it's a new group of people, and it's a new fight to me that we have to attack, and we have to have new ways to attack it. We can't keep saying we're going to make some another stores on Jefferson, as was, and we're going to build some houses, and the police force has this program, and the other program that you mentioned has this peace. I've heard of all of these programs, and I've been here probably longer than some of these men. I'm up in age, and I know some of our old friends, Raymond Scott and James McCullough, and we were here when the riots, and we did a lot of things that, up until now, it seems to me like it's the same thing. And I'm here really representing a change in the way that the young men out there think. What changed my thinking is what I would like to speak about is I got myself into a church. I got myself in a church because, as we say, I've tried everything else, and believe me, I've tried a lot of things, and it wasn't successful. So I'm saying what is successful to me, and since then I have passed this on to the young brothers out there. I see them, and they know me as you do. Hey, Smoke, how you doing? And nobody pulls guns on me. Nobody wants to beat me, and and I walk in my neighborhood, which is not the prettiest neighborhood in town, and but there's more young men out there and girls, I would say, that don't get the recognition that they should get because of what they're not doing. It's what they're doing that seems to be, that's news-wise. I think that the young kids should get recognition for what they. I'm not selling drugs. Okay, that's good for you. I'm playing ball, Smoke. I'm doing this. I would like to see those kids, and it fills my heart to see them. And I'm recognized in my church as a Sunday school teacher, a guitar player, all the things that I was doing before I can still do, but I'm doing them for the better, not only for the community, but for myself. And if you don't feel any good part about yourself, you can't stop it. I can't stop it, unfortunately. And they're going to continue to be that way.
How do we begin to get young people to start recognizing their self-worth? How do we get them on that track? How do we get them to recognize that they can and do whatever it is that they desire to do?
I think we begin with trust. There's been so many things that the young kids that I talk to and see, as I told you, from Avenue D and, other places that I go. Trust. I think that the young people are losing the trust in the people that they used to look up to. You and I, we used to do things, but we had trust in people, and that's probably why we couldn't stop doing what we were doing, because we seen where, hey, there is different kind of people. I remember when I was a young boy, there was the captain of police. You mentioned Captain Shepard, and there was a police officer there at that time was a captain. And he used to shoot at us for skipping school, And people, oh no, no police, but it's true, And when I tell kids that, what happened, like I said, and that's no more. I said, that's not happening anymore. And there's good things that's going on through the police department and bad things, But to shoot at you for skipping school, it seems like, oh, I'll never forget that. I'll never trust. But, I outgrew that or changed my way of thinking about that, because in order for me to get ahead with myself, I had to forget about things like that and look at people that I do now, my pastor, Fleming Ashford, and my best deacon friend, Bo Jack, and, there's people there that, and you, and, and seeing, and Josh, and people that I know, and, that we was in that riot killings that I call it. People call it different things, but it was, to me, it was nothing shorter than murder.
When you talk about, and we're talking about the riot in Atlanta.
Right. And I went to U of R in September, and I spoke, and I said the same things that I'm saying to you now. The change has to come from people that you trust, that you believe in, and that they can see that you're actually doing what you say. I remember the first show that I saw, you had about the drafts and things, and me and you talked briefly about it. A lot of kids don't know how to, even know what it is when you see these things. And I asked them about your show. They said, oh, you know him? I said, yeah, and see, these are the kind of things that I think that I want you to know, that the young boys are paying attention to, and they're paying attention to people that tells them about things, and showing them by seeing you on the shows and by seeing other people, that tells them there is a different way, It may not come exactly like you want it to, but there is a different way, And as far as us stopping anything, we can't stop anything, but the person himself can stop, I don't listen to what you say, but look at us, I was in the prison system for, from the 50s until the 70s. And briefly in that, and nobody came up to me with no program, The only program that I had, like I said, I had friends that I could trust in and say, why don't you come in, why don't you do this? And what it sounded like, I said, well, I have tried everything, what have I got to lose? And so when I got in it, I loved to play the guitar, as you know, and I loved sports. And everything that I was doing I just turned it into a positive thing myself, through help, but I had to make up my mind that this is what I want to do. You know, I don't want to be back in the prison where they shot at me and shot my legs up and, you know, where they beat you and where they did things. You know, these things here was no good. And it didn't take all of that because I believe that everybody has something in them that was foretold way before it got to this point to where it's a separation. You know, it reminds me of a young man in the Bible named Joseph, where his brothers took him out and put him in the ditch and told his dad he's dead. You know, see, that's a long time ago, you would say, but it's like yesterday to some of the world that's going on, things that's going on today. You know, go ahead.
And I think what you're saying is very true, because I strongly believe what we need to be able to do is show these young men through our example, because just as you're saying, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
We have done everything that they're trying to do. They may be doing it differently, but we have done that, and we can show them that there is no prize behind that door. All that I ever got from my efforts of trying to outdo and outmaneuver the things that I knew were right were nothing but long prison term sentences.
I know.
And it wasn't until I started believing that I could do better when I started doing better. If I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like what you're saying, it's going to take more people like us interacting with young people again. That's the way it used to be. That's our relationship.
Right.
Because you're a little older than I am, but you took me under your wing, and even though I was doing some things that were sideways, you always made me understand, now this is your choice. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to do this because you have to make a choice. This is your decision. I think we're missing that today. I don't think that we have enough elders, if you will, that are providing this information. I think somewhere along the line, I guess we felt that, okay, this was no longer our responsibility, that now, and we just let these young people just go off on their own way. And now I believe that what we have to be able to do is to bring these people back. When you were mentioning earlier to me, or when you mentioned earlier, starting the beginning of the show, that you've heard a lot of this, when we talk about those charts and the diagrams, one of the things that we saw, because of the heavy-handedness of incarceration, we eliminated young men from neighborhoods to the point now that there is something like, for every one man, there is something like 50 women. Okay, and that number is just drastic when you come to try to make a meaningful community. How do you make a meaningful community out of numbers like that? And one of the things that Chief Shepard mentioned last week is that they thought that they could arrest their way out of this problem. But now they're saying that that didn't work as well. So now, what are some of the things that we need to be able to do? What are the things that because we can't let lawlessness run rapid in the community. So how do we approach that?
Well, I would say with the police, you had a nice group of people here last week, and they all are important to Rochester community. You know, all are very important. A lot of these young men, they may not even, outside of the police officer, Chief Shepard, they may not even know who they were, you know, and so we have to rely more on the police, which we see every day and have lost a total amount, not a total, but a tremendous amount of disrespect for them, because as I spoke earlier, the chief of police used to shoot at us for skipping school. So thank God that don't happen anymore, and we wouldn't even think of that. Well, actually, we didn't either. But all we was doing, and nobody believes, that when we would tell this, we didn't have black leaders then. I remember the first police officer we had, the very first, and I remember, who we have now. And I applaud that, like that's good. But what are you doing, that's going to have the young people believe in you? I believe in you because of the respect that I've learned as a man. This young man here has to believe in you. You can't. What are you going to tell me? Because I can always go back and say something that was related to me. I remember these same kind of lights used to be in your face when you went downtown and say talk. And some of the things that you wind up saying you never even heard of. And like it's different kind of situations. Thank God that don't happen anymore. And I remember that you getting a beating was a common thing, not with just a few slaps, There's a lot of things that I have to give these people credit for, but don't say things that you're not gonna come up with. Don't tell me about what you're gonna do to Jefferson and you told me this 10, 15 years ago and it ain't happened yet. Young people don't wait like that. It's not like a microwave, Let me go in and put this in the microwave and pretty soon I have dinner, See, they don't realize that it takes time, It takes time and it takes patience and it takes a lot of work and it takes your effort too, young man, your effort too, young lady, your effort too, pastors and priests and everybody else that's in these positions. It takes your effort. Don't sit back and let, like you said, too few people do. If it's a job for all of us, let's all of us do it then. Like I haven't seen enough people, like you said. I haven't seen enough people that I think that really, maybe it's my imagination, but I don't think you don't feel like I feel. And I think if you feel like I feel, you are willing to go and do whatever it is that you do, because all of us has something that we do, and we do it very good, and it could be used for the community. It don't have to be a gun,
It sounds like what you're saying is that what we need to do is to get some of the elders to get back involved. It seems like to me that a lot of us have just stepped aside, and for us this is no longer our concern. This is no longer our fight anymore. But I believe we need to get back into the thick of things because the community is going awry. I find it amazing that there's a school on their website, they brag that they have a 39% graduation rate. How could this possibly happen in this day and time? And the reason why that is happening and these schools can feel good about a 39% graduation rate is because there are not enough of us speaking out about this. I think the reasons why we have the things that we have, the conditions, economic development to me is a major, major point of how a community will exist. But now, don't get me wrong, I think, yes, houses from Habitat of Humanity, these are great things.
Me too.
But is that really economic development? Because now if this home is built for, say, $30,000, $35,000, now will that person be able to receive that $30,000, $35,000 for equity? Or will the price of that property go up? In most cases, it doesn't. So now what we have are people that are still stuck in this quagmire, disguised as economic development. And I think that these are things that we have to begin to look at. I was told that the development on Jefferson Avenue isn't necessarily for the people on Jefferson Avenue that actually live in that area.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is all really being undermined and financed, if you will, by outside entities. And I think that these are things that we've got to start truly looking into. I know that I was speaking to the city of Rochester because I wanted to find out if they had a woman minority business program. And I found out that they do have one, but there's something like $2 billion of bids out there, and we are letting a lot of that go by. For instance, with the tearing down of the Midtown Plaza, the mall there, and now the construction of that. How many people look like us participating in that? How many of us actually went for some of the bids there? I think that these are things that we've got to start doing for us to be able to start taking control of our lives again. Since I've been back in Rochester, I've been told and criticized that I'm too hard, I'm speaking too harshly about the incidents here, and I need to take my time, I need to slow down. I think that's what the problem is because not only have we slowed down, we've stopped.
Stop, all right, yeah.
And I think that now, by you coming on the show, this is representing to me that people are paying attention to things, whether you agree with it or not. You said there are some things that I don't necessarily agree with, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to be able to come on the show to voice this, because that's what we need. We need this community dialogue. We need to be talking to each other again, and we have stopped doing that. And we don't know each other. There was a time that everybody in this community knew each other. You couldn't date a girl if her mother and father didn't know your mother and father.
All right.
And now it's not like that anymore.
No.
And we don't know who our neighbors are. We don't know next generation families anymore. And what we've fallen into is what I call this state of generational poverty, where now, instead of us seeing a progression, we're seeing a decrease. We're seeing things just become so bad, it doesn't look like it's ever going to be good. And those are the things that I think that we need to turn around. How do we bring people our age and older, the people that were out there in the fight, how do we get them back into this? Because I believe, because of the experience that we have, it's because of the path that we have traveled that we basically have no other choice. I believe that the reason why we are in the state that we're in is because of people like us. Okay, I was gone for 30 years. Okay, other people shut down for 30 years. But I think that what we have seen now, the results of a lack of true interaction within the last 30 years, is what is being produced now. We lived in this city all our lives. We never knew we were in a crescent. Okay? All of a sudden now, man, they're telling us we live in this zone.
That was a new word for me, too,
And so, do we now actually begin to think that now, because we live in this zone, that we are that zone? Here, we grew up in this city, not being affected by those words. But now today, young people are growing up in this city being affected by those very words. I think with the violence, the level of violence that we're seeing today is because the news channels, there's one in particularly, this is all they publish on their station. And what we have now are young black people sitting around saying, I know that person, or that they're waiting to see themselves on television, because this is the closest that they can come to fame, or so they believe. And I believe that now it is our duty for us to start coming back out and start saying to young people that this isn't the way. Look at, we've done this. We tried to put a square peg into a round hole, and it's not going to fit. And as a result of that, we wasted a good portion of our lives, time that we can never get back. And I feel that rather than someone having to live the experience, why can't they live through our experience and see that there is a better way? And just as you're saying, there are more good young people than there are bad. It's just that the bad ones are getting all the press, and therefore everyone's being swept with the same brush.
And I would say, I spoke on the radio program in Buffalo. He heard me speak at the University of Rochester, a black station there, and they invited me to be a speaker there because he said, I like what you're saying, you know, and so he said, you probably have a half hour, and he gave me an hour of time, and people were calling in and saying, hey, you know, like they were pleased, and he called me a couple of days later, and he said, you know, I'm still getting calls about you being on the show. He said, I appreciate that, you know, and it was a radio program, and I said, well, actually, what you do, the young people listens to more than, you know, you see them walking around with their ears plugged up and, you know, and this is and that's, and are they Facebooking and all this kind of stuff, you know. We took more time to say, hey, how you doing, you know, and, you know, like, and talk. And so if the radio programs plays CDs or whatever they do, or they call them, I used to call them records, you know. If they play this, that's what the young kids are listening to, and they're not going to take time to listen to you, me, or whoever, you know, if you're not one of these people that's doing this, you know. And I think that radio programs should be more careful about what they're saying, what they're playing, you know, and what they're representing, you know, out there to the young people. I know they have to make a living. They buy commercials and so what and playing. But if you're playing music, me and you used to like to hear singing to a girl and calling her out, telling her how beautiful she is, and you know, and the stars and all this kind of stuff. This was our thing. We got to learn that, you know. But now, you know, like, you know, I'll knock you down, you know, and I'll stomp in your face, and I'll do, you know, like, this is young people's stuff. And if you don't play young people's stuff, they have to buy it, you know. And so if you have to buy it, you're more apt not to have it, you know, because it costs. And it's not a cheap price to me either, you know. I don't know, maybe to them. But when I was a young man, there were certain black people that couldn't even be played on a radio. This was before television became a big thing. And there was some that they could be played. But what we couldn't hear was blues. I mean, they ain't talking about knocking nobody down and, you know, and calling them all kind of names, you know, like you mentioned earlier. Hey, if your father and your mother didn't know who he was and all this, you ain't coming here. See, but now, you know, they don't care who you are, it seems like. And my daughter, yeah, you know, like, go ahead out there with them, you know, like, these things are promoted, you know, by black people, through black people, and then they turn around when somebody's shot, you know. That's a shame how that young man, that's a shame what happened to that woman. Yes, it's a shame, but it's a shame how you seem to be pushing this, you know, without saying, hey, you can't bring that in here. It happened before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you hit on a very good point as well. Perhaps maybe we lived in a simpler time, and because when we were growing up with the advent of television first coming on, they really didn't know what to put on on the air. There were only 3 channels. So at that particular time, it still gave us the chance to sit down at the dinner table and talk. Because we didn't have those mediums, or the mediums were relatively new, we still talked. With the advent of cable TV now, satellite radios with thousands of channels, the internet, Facebook, smartphones, what has happened now is we've disengaged ourselves from other people. And the way that we engage now are through devices. And I don't know, are we just 2 old men in a world of devices? Or are we 2 old men saying that maybe these devices are truly devices that are dividing us? Okay? These are devices that now are stopping us from truly communicating. These are devices now that we can lose ourselves in. We don't have to feel the pain, if you will. We can escape through these devices. And I believe that somehow we've got to reach back and start touching each other. I came across a saying that the reason why our hands were created with spaces in between the fingers is so another person's fingers would fill those spaces.
Right.
And I believe that that's one of the things that we've got to start getting back into, us relying on each other again, because we've become so far removed. I believe that that's part of the reasons why it is so easy for us to kill each other in the manner that we do. It's because we are so disconnected. We don't feel anything for the person in front of us. And that's part of the reasons why that number, which just absolutely staggers my mind, that 52% of the murders here are over disputes. I continue to ask myself, what are we arguing about? What could possibly make us kill each other from a basic argument? I could understand life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that, but because someone said something about you on Facebook, because you feel that you were disrespected because of the manner of tone that a person used with you, I just think that we have got to find ways of getting back to what made us whole. Now, yes, we are a lot more advanced technologically, but I believe that we are further removed as human beings. Would you add on to something to that? What do we need to do? As I said, I know perhaps maybe we come from a simpler time. Maybe it was, maybe it's because we didn't have anything else to do.
Well,
okay, but maybe we need to go back to that.
but I don't, you know, it seems like it was a simpler time because people were more, like you were saying, you know, like filling in these, you know, and so it made it seem sensible because as you know that the first killing that had ever occurred that we know of, speaking of my favorite book, the Bible, was by a brother killing a brother. So that's goes back, as I say, a long time, and killing's still going on. And it hasn't stopped because we all have one common enemy, and you know, we call him Satan. See, other people might call him something else, and other people might say it's alcohol, but all of these are tools of the enemy. And if you keep dealing with the enemy, you're going to remain at a level to where you're never going to pick yourself up because you don't care. You know, in order for one of the things that I used to like when I saw you, you was talking about reading. You know, it wasn't the Bible. You know, you was reading. You like to read. You know, and that was one of the things that me and you used to talk about. I said, man, you always reading something. You know, and you know, different books of different people, and you know, if it didn't harm you, you know, it's not going to harm the kids out there now. You know, there's things that I know when we came out of the riot. I said, hey, you know, like, how you doing? You know, what you doing, man? You know, we need to do. You know, they had a lot of, you know, let's do this, man, about doing that to us kind of thing. You know, I said, you can't win that. You know, I said, I don't like to get in nothing I don't win. I said, you know, all of my football teams, all my basketball teams, everything I played on, I won. I won. We lost a game with 15 seconds to go once, and I didn't sleep for I don't know how long. You know, and so like things like that, you know, being a loser, pick yourself up and be a winner. You know, nobody that shoots somebody down in the street, you know, is going to get any praise from you, me, as speaking of the elderly people, you know, and even when you go downtown. I went down and I've taught Sunday school and I've talked at the tables and I've said, what do you think about this? What's going on? And they all had different opinions, you know. Some of them, you know, like were, you know, like I didn't want to hear, but you know, it was his opinion, but. You have to show care. You have to show faith. You have to let people know whatever you do, man, being in here is not the end of the world. You know, especially with somebody like me that started coming in the 50s. You know, when I left here and went to prison, I was the only black person in there from Rochester when I went to Elmira. The only one. And I know that because it's on a big tier there, and you get to know everybody eventually. And I was only, where is Rochester? They didn't even know where Rochester was, so I know they didn't know me, you know. But you get to know people, and people start knowing, you know, respecting you because of who you are. And you can never change who you are, you know, but you can change what you are. You know, right now, you know, like you're a prisoner. You know, it don't make no difference how much money you had, what color you was, or anything. You were considered a prisoner in this confinement, and I operate and own this place. You can go to the library, you know, or you can go out here in one of these corners, as you know, and start talking about a uprising if you want to, you know. Like I said, I appreciate the fact that you was one of them library people. You read. You know, people didn't bother you. You had your own thing that you was doing, and what you did then is paying off now because you're helping. You know, and you didn't learn this, bang. You know, it took some effort from you in order for this kind of thing to come off. This is something that you said, hey, you told me, you said when I came back and I saw my city, you know, where I was raised, and you know, and life was all I know was here, you know, I had to come back and start doing something about it. See, a lot of people leave here and they say, I'm glad I'm gone, you know. And I got my Kodak pension and my Xerox this here and my this, you know, and I'm gone. I ain't ever going back. I don't care what's happening to them, you know. But to leave somebody behind is a crime too. You know, it's a sin, it's a crime to leave somebody behind when you know what you're leaving behind. And I appreciate, like I said, I can't say it enough, the fact that you didn't leave nobody behind and you're still trying. The people business, I tell my pastor, I say, you're in the people business. If you get one person, you know, you want 1 million, you know, I understand that. You know, you want 1,000, you know, you make 100. But one person in the people business, I call it, is a great help, you know, because from that one can become plenty, you know. Suppose you didn't do it.
There's a saying that I came across that says when one person has an idea, they consider that person to be crazy. When two people have that same idea, now the idea is considered brilliant. When you have 5 people that now take on that idea, now they put action to that idea. When you have 10 people that put that idea into action and make that thing grow, now it begins to influence a community. Now with 50 people with that same idea, it now influences a city. 100 people with that same idea now begins to impact a county. 1,000 people with that same idea can change a state. Well, I guess you can see where I'm going with this. The more that we bring on, the more that we can change. I agree with you from the very start of the show that I'm using this very same things that I use to change my life. This is what I'm sharing with other people. I stopped lying, and therefore lies stopped coming to me. I stopped cheating, so I no longer get cheated. Okay? I stopped doing the negative things that brought negative things into my life. And once I stopped that, then I started seeing the beauty of my life. I was speaking earlier to a gentleman about how when I left from here, as you can remember, in a real hurry, and I ended up in Florida. I can remember my first paycheck. This was my first real job that I had really worked. And my first paycheck, I bought a car for $250. Now, what kind of car can you possibly have for $250? But for me, that was one of the proudest moments in my life, because this was the first time that I had actually earned something. I had now was able to see from my efforts the reward from that. I was so proud of that car. I didn't care. People would laugh at my car. Women wouldn't get in the car. But it didn't matter to me, because what the car represented to me was, look what you're capable of doing. You don't have to do that dumb stuff. You are creative. You have the ability to do whatever it is that you want. And then that $250 car turned into several $1,000 cars, living in a beautiful home, traveling around the world. Now, it didn't happen overnight. It took me 23 years to get to that level. But what it was the constant change. And that's one of the things that we've got to let young people know, that the world isn't going anywhere. Tomorrow when you wake up, that's the reason why I love the name of our show, It's a New Day.
It's a new day.
And with that new day, it is so full of promise. Everything that you didn't do yesterday, you have a chance to do it today. Whatever thought that you had, you can undo that thought. It's just a matter of a shifting of awareness. And these are the things that I think that we've gotten away from. I believe it's because it is so simple that we can't really grasp it anymore. We look for the complexities. We even hide behind the complexity because if it's complex, then that means I can't do it. Okay, that was one of my excuses when I started reading. It was because I didn't have a dictionary. Okay, because I didn't have a dictionary. Okay, I couldn't look up the words. So since I didn't know what the word meant, why read the book? Because if there were words there that I didn't understand, and it wasn't until I started getting the dictionary that now those words and that passage with those words became meaningful. And I strongly believe that what turned my life around, and you know me, I was in trouble for many, many years, going back and forth to prison. And it wasn't until I finally began to say to myself, I got to stop this. And it wasn't until that I began to realize how precious freedom was.
Mm-hmm.
It is an amazing thing to me. Maybe sometimes we all have to go to a point
Mm-hmm.
or reach a point.
Mm-hmm.
Because my point is that it wasn't until I was on the run that my freedom became real to me.
Yeah.
It became important, and I know that is such a contradiction, because prior to that, all I had to do was walk the straight and narrow, and I would have been free.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I was now on the wrong side of the law for a long time that freedom meant something to me every day. Every day that I woke up and I was not captured was a beautiful day for me.
Yeah.
Now, because I no longer have that behind me anymore, every day now is a beautiful day.
All right.
And I think that that's what we've got to get young people to start saying. We've got to get people in our community to see that despite what the conditions that you see yourself in now, it's still a good day. Because we can change this, okay? Because this is all just a matter of a shift in awareness, a shift in one's thinking. And when we can get them to start seeing the beauty that they have, because as I stated in my book, beauty is something that is reflection from what you see of the world. If you see the world as bad, but that's the reflection that you're going to see. If you see the world as being good, then that's the reflection that you're going to see. And I think that it's up to us to really get out here. And I know that this is an awesome task, and especially at our age.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with young people that think that they have answers like we thought we had answers.
Oh, yes. Don't forget
Okay.
us. Yeah, right.
But I believe because of what we know, what is at the end of that road, I think we have no other choice. I know for myself, I say to people, I'm here. Now, you may think that I'm here because I'm trying to save Rochester. If it were up to me, I'd be back in Florida in the sunshine.
Yeah, right.
But I truly have nothing to do with this. I'm here because this is where I'm supposed to be at this particular time. No matter how badly and no matter how much I complain, how cold it is and how much I would like to be in the sunshine, I know I'm not going back until it's time for me to go back.
Okay.
And so, therefore, I believe that when we realize our position in life, what we are supposed to do, and when we realize that, then we begin to realize what we're capable of doing. And when we realize what we're capable of doing, not only do those things become probable, they become unstoppable.
Yeah, right. All right. But and I read where it says you don't light a candle and put it under a basket, and that's another Bible verse. And we are all lights, but if we all, because me and you are sitting here, and if we put our, if me and you were under the basket, well, where would the light be?
Exactly.
You know, so if me and you can be a light, so can somebody else. And don't just, like I was, when we were talking, I said, there are some things that I don't agree with. And it seems like you're lighting this light, you know, some of the things that they were saying, and you're putting a basket over it, you know. Let it shine. Let people know, you know, like, that's what used to be when they were this. I'm this now, and I'm going to do this and do it, you know. See, because if nobody believes in you because of the next person, you know, nobody's going to believe in you or I until they actually see, now some people are going to be watching you that knows me, you know, because they have to, you know, because I know them and they want to see what I said, even if it's wrong. You know, whatever reason they want to watch, it's all right.
Exactly.
You know, and then you tell me, you know, I say, oh, okay, well, what do you think? Like you saying to me, what do you think should be done then? You know, and then because we know, I'm here because I know you. You know, they've had other shows. I didn't know the people, and the people didn't know me, and they didn't care if I got on there or not. You know, but I've always had this light, right or wrong. I had it in the Attica, I had it in the street, and, you know, and I still got the light to where I like to see things going. Like I said, I don't like to lose. I don't like no W's on my column. You know, I mean no L's on my column. I like just to have it going on the right direction, which we know it's not, but it's for a reason that we are here. And the reason is not us. You know?
Exactly.
You know, it's not us. You know, like we say, we two old guys, you know, we could say, hey, you know, I don't live my life, let it go for yourself. I did it for me. But it's for the people that we really care about out there, you know, and can help. And it makes me feel better when I'm helping than hurting.
Exactly. And I want the viewing audience to see and to realize that this isn't a new day just for me. It's just not my new day.
Right.
This is a new day for all of us. And this is something that we all can participate. You don't have to be the chief of police to come on the show. You don't have to be the director of a program to come on the show. It's my intent to have every person in Rochester who wants to come on the show, come on the show, to voice their opinion, whether we agree or disagree. But I want everyone to know that this is a medium for you to get good information. When I had my newspaper in Florida, my tagline was, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And because we're losing our vision here in Rochester, we're slowly perishing. I would like to be able to revitalize that vision. I'd like to pump some new life, some new sight into that vision, because I believe that once we see properly, then we can see where we're going. We can now get out of the stop stumbling in the dark. We can begin to flourish like the way that we did it one time. I'm amazed when I've come back here and I see the level of poverty, these neighborhoods torn down. I'm either asking myself, I was either so simple or so caught up into it that I didn't see this, but that's not true. Jefferson Avenue didn't look like that. Okay, I mean, it just didn't look like that. Portland Avenue did not look the way that it looks now. And I believe that if we don't come to grips with this reality, if we don't come to grips with understanding that we cannot continue to live like this, that we're going to find ourselves further and further behind. And we're now going to be a community that is truly living in isolation, because I feel that it isn't just the problem of the people who live in this Crescent area, but this is a Rochesterian problem. In order for Rochester to become great, it's going to take all of us citizenry to make us great. We need to have those within inside this community helping us, as well as those outside of us. You will see in some upcoming shows, I've been getting calls from people who are into green, the developing the greenness, and now becoming more energy conservative. I look at that. Of course, I want to bring it into this community, because maybe these are things that we can learn. Perhaps maybe we can create a couple of green jobs. I think the idea of waiting for another Kodak to come here to supply us with another 60,000 jobs is a thing of the past. We have got to now start coming up with ways to create our own livelihood. When we begin to lock in through the three main components of owning your own, the one is autonomy. When you own your own, there is such freedom within inside that. The next component is complexity. The complexity comes about because look what you're capable of doing. Maybe someone else does not have the ability to do what you have, so that makes you stand alone in what you do. As well, the complexity of what someone else's does makes them stand alone. And those two components there bring about the third component, when you can now begin to have the relationship between effort and reward. When you understand that connection, now that is what makes getting up in the morning worthwhile. In Fort Lauderdale, when I had my newspaper, I didn't care if anybody read the newspaper or not. Every month you were going to get a newspaper. I didn't care if you threw it in the garbage, you did whatever you did with the newspaper, but I know one thing, you got the newspaper.
Right.
And it's the same thing with this show. When I told them I want to do a show every week, they said, you know, that's very lofty, that's a lot of shows. I know it. And I told them, I don't care if anybody watches the show or not. I don't care if I'm just talking to the camera. Every week you're going to get a show. Because just like what you said, if we can touch just one person, then it has made all this effort worthwhile. And that's what we've got to start getting back into, making life meaningful again, and bringing back perhaps maybe some of the simplicity back. Because the reality is, life is very, very simple. All life is breathing in and out. Because if you're not breathing in and out, you're not alive, okay? And the other part of this is the reason why we think it's more than that is because somehow we have gotten into this joy of making life complicated. We now have manufactured our own prisons. And now what I like to be able to think and to believe that we have a medium now that will allow people to come every week, tune into the show, whether you agree or not. But the beauty of that is that you have the ability to voice your opinion. You have the ability to come on this show and share your opinions. This is how the process works. I broadcast the show. You determine what pieces of it that are good for you or not good for you. If you like, I'll offer you the opportunity, as I offered you, to come in and discuss the show, what aspects of the show that you liked or disagree with, and what you bring to the table. That, to me, is when that's when the world is right. To me, that's when we know that now public TV is really working. I thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much. I love you so much. We must never give up. We cannot allow voices to deter us. The only voice that we can listen to is the voice that is inside of us. And as I always say, with each sunset, there will come a new sunrise. And with each sunrise, guess what? It's a new day. I'll see you next week, and be blessed.